The cost of not having strategic alignment in your company can be very high. And in this video, I'm going to go through what could be the cost of not having strategic alignment, and also what could be the reasons for not having it, and how can you potentially start solving these problems and getting your teams really to be more strategically aligned. So very quickly, let's talk about what a strategic alignment is. A strategic alignment means that you have created some strategy in your company that is defining where you want to go. How is it going to help you? What are the steps that you have to take in order to achieve your vision? And this strategy then is translated into the work that your teams have. And actually, the work that your teams are doing is linked to that strategy. So what your product development team is doing is aligned to the goals in the strategy, and the same goes for teams like marketing and sales. But today we are going to concentrate on what are the costs of having or not having strategic alignment, because obviously there are problems when you don't have a strategic alignment. It's not just that you are not doing the things that you should be doing in order to achieve your vision. These are going to have real cost and real impact on your business. So the first impact that you're going to notice is your wasted efforts by all the different teams. So marketing, product, sales teams, mainly. The rest of the teams are going to be also very affected by these ones. But these are the ones that usually are creating either the product or they are doing the activities that are more related to go-to-market. There can be other teams, that's also true. It depends a ton on the organization, but those are the most typical teams that you will recognize easily in all organizations. So what happens here is that the time that these teams are spending on different efforts, on different opportunities, building different features, trying to create new promotions, are going to, let's say, the wrong direction, and they are not aligned with the strategy that you have defined. Meaning that in the end, they're not going to promote the strategy, meaning that probably the strategy is trying to grow your company. This is going to hit your growth, potential growth is going to take a hit. The investment and the money that you're putting into your development teams, meaning the salaries that you're paying to your team, really are not going to go align with the strategy that you really want to move forward. Your teams are going to be worried about moving the business in other different directions that are not aligned with that strategy that you set, meaning that that money that you think that you are investing in either development, R&D, or sales potentially is not going to go in the direction that you think that it should be going. And this finally means that basically it's not just about the money that you are potentially not investing correctly. It's about the potential missed opportunities. If you would be going in the direction that you have set with your strategy, your growth potential, ideally, if your strategy is set right, which is of course something that is not necessarily something that happens in all the companies, it will go into the direction that you want it to go, meaning that you really are focusing, meaning that your teams are really clear about what they should be doing, and they know what are the steps to really help grow the company. And the fact that you are not investing in there, you probably are not just wasting money on the money that you're investing internally in the company, is the growth opportunities that you're potentially missing. And that's probably the biggest hit that you're taking, and probably the one that is the most difficult to calculate. So there's a little bit of a spray and pray attitude of let's hope for the best, let's try as many things as we can, work a lot, work very hard, but not necessarily any focus, a ton of hope that these things will click and that they will work. And this is one of the main problems that company has, and one of the main worries for business people, because it's about the investments that are not going the right direction, and also the potential loss of growth. So if you're interested, I have an ROI calculator that is going to help you estimate what is your current strategic alignment. And from that strategic alignment, what do you think would be a realistic strategic alignment for your team, based on the number of employees that you have in that team and the cost of those employees in the organization? This is going to help you understand the money that you are investing at this point that is really not bringing value to your company, that is really not bringing alignment with that strategy that you have defined. Go check out the video, the description in the video. The other big problem that you're potentially going to have with lack of a strategic alignment, it's not just about the waste, it's not just about the missed opportunities, that this is going to have an impact on your personal, on the people that are working for you. And this eventually is going to mean that there's not going to be motivation, or motivation is going to be reduced, because items might be random. There's a ton of uncertainty, there's no clarity, there's no focus. There's going to be probably frustration among the teams, and potentially there's going to be lack of engagement because they don't feel linked to a mission, to a goal, because everything seems to be random. And this is not just for R&D teams and product teams, that maybe those are the teams that usually have been more watching my videos, but the frustration is going to be also in the marketing team, it's going to be also in sales teams, because they see, and they probably have the same problem with their own strategies, but also they see the potential problems in the other teams and the lack of alignment. And finally, another cost that you're going to have are the customer costs. And this is probably eventually the biggest and most problematic cost that you are going to have as a business, because if you have customer costs, that probably can end up being your business costs, and that might end up with a product and your whole business not going the direction that you wanted it to go. And here you will think, or you will have things, if this starts to go for a longer time, is that the customer experience is going to start changing. Customers are going to notice that potentially, for example, in the product, there's no new things that they can take advantage of. And yes, this will always affect to certain customers, but when your ideal customer profile, your ICP, starts repeating continuously that your product has no new value in the last years, that's a very, very big red flag. That's something that I've seen in many companies. I'm pretty sure that many companies still out there have this problem nowadays. And when you think over this over the long term, what you're going to have is a loss of reputation. Your brand is going to erode or suffer from this. And this is going to be a huge cost. And if you start to lose your reputation, especially when you are a business, getting back that reputation is extremely expensive and it's extremely hard. So it's better to be proactive and be able and think about how you are really going to align that strategy to your goals. So now let's go through the main reasons why this lack of strategic alignment happens. So the first one, and where I think that is usually one of the main problems, is with the lack of leadership support. So leadership in some cases have not a clear strategy, or they have not either maybe defined a strategy, or the strategy is completely individual, done, or siloed. So one team has one strategy, the other team has another strategy, meaning that the leadership team is not working together, is not aligning the different strategies from the different teams. So then there's not going to be an overall strategy for the company, meaning that the efforts are going to go in different directions. It's again this spray and pray type of attitude. So that's one of the main problems, that the strategy has either not been well defined, or is missing, or is not really a good strategy. There might be a good strategy, and the next problem that can happen is that even although there's this good strategy defined for growth and to help promote the product and grow the sales or the knowledge or the brand awareness of your product, one of the problems is that this strategy has maybe either hand over to the teams like one time, and this happens unfortunately too many times, that it's just passed to the teams and then hope for the best. But then leadership is not following up, is not constantly supporting the work on this strategy. And there's a ton of this hands-off attitude nowadays. There's a ton of giving ownership, but leadership has to be all the time part of this work. So to make sure that the strategy and the focus is kept all the time and is not just going into different directions. Another reason why there's lack of strategic alignment is that the teams are not, obviously their work is not aligned with your strategy. And this is probably the most obvious ones. And usually the teams get the blame from this. In some cases, obviously, they had the blame. In some other cases, maybe not quite so. And there are other reasons. Here you can see things like your development team and your product team planning and executing on roadmaps that really are not aligned with your strategy. They might be not aligned with the personas. They might not be aligned with the different opportunities and the features basically that they're trying to build. They're not really bringing a ton of value. The second one is that, for example, marketing can be focused on creating or trying to reach out to new ICPs without really having aligned with other teams, where maybe potentially the product has not really good capabilities to support that new ICP. The same happens with sales. Sales, for example, potentially going and try to sell to new personas, new ICPs, and potentially even selling the product on promises on items or opportunities or features that are going to be implemented in the future in the roadmap, which is usually a problem because those features might not be aligned with your strategy, and that's not probably a direction that you want your product to go, because then basically you are pulling in all the different directions and not really having a focus on the direction that you want to go as a company, as a business, as a product. And probably one of the biggest ones that I've seen is that, and you probably have seen it or heard about it before, is that teams are working in silos. And teams working in silos have a problem, obviously, of not coordinating. But the biggest problem that I see is that there's no push into one direction of trying to really achieve what is this strategy or where this strategy should be bringing us into in the future. There's not that push. Everybody's going into different directions. There's no guidance. There's no push. And that's what I said earlier, that for me, one of the main reasons in the end, it boils down to a lack of leadership, of understanding and having a common agreement of where do we want to go as a company, as a business, and of course, as a product. So I'm planning to create a small course to help companies to understand the potential size of problem that they might have and do a self-assessment of the lack of alignment in the companies. If you're interested, I will put a waiting list so you can get notified when this is available and published. If you don't want to wait and you want to really start changing how your teams are working, you can go and check out the course that I put together to create a strategic alignment with your product teams, with your development teams, and really start driving business impact in your company. So strategic alignment is not just important because you want to really bring focus into your company, that people are implementing your strategy. The reality of your strategy is that your strategy is defined to bring growth, to move the company forward, to drive it closer to the vision that you set for it, to the vision of your product if you have a very big company that has multiple products. There's a ton of cost potentially related to not having a strategic alignment that we talk about today. So the first one was wasted resources, wasted investments that are not bringing, or your teams are not really spending the time on the areas that will bring that strategy forward. The second one that we talk about is the problems that you will have and the cost that you will have in your personal over time when lack of motivation, not being committed to the company or not being committed to the development of the product is going to really impact their work, their performance, and finally also it's going to impact the customer themselves. So that's the final cost that you might potentially will have, that are the customer costs. When your customers are not happy with your product, they are not going to be happy potentially with the experience that your product had, the customer experience, the services that you provide. And that probably can lead to brand damage and erosion, which is not where you want to go over time. If you want to know more about what strategic alignment is, go check out this video. See you in the next one.